sharing the fun because it creates conversation. Arrow.net, ARROE.net. We are unplugged and totally uncut with Randy Rainbow.
Good, Arrow. How are you?
Fantastic, man. With a name like Randy Rainbow, why didn't you get into radio? Because that would have been really cool. 7:15 in the morning with Randy Rainbow. Man, we've got your car covered.
You know what? You were so good at that. I thought you were actually throwing to commercial. I thought you were doing a commercial. I know. I could have done a lot of things with this name. I don't know. I had to kind of grow into it. It's the real name, by the way. There is a picture in the book of the birth certificate because, of course, people think it's the corniest stage name ever. I would not have done that to myself.
Oh, my God. It is the perfect name because, I mean, I worked with a engineer up in Montana. His name was Randy Rocks. I went, my God, why was I born Clarence? I don't want that name, man.
Well, you took care of that. It doesn't say Clarence on your name.
Oh my God. Writing this book, Playing with Myself. I mean, you are taking us behind the scenes. What was that like in the writing process? Because when you start to unveil who Randy Rainbow is, you know, we know that, you know, there's a connection now.
Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. You know, people know me from this kind of two-dimensional persona in my videos, which is breaking into show tunes and, you know, putting on costumes, and certainly a part of me. You know, it's an element of my character, usually after a couple of drinks. But I realized it's not all of me. So I kind of wanted to take this opportunity to really be as real and raw as I possibly could, and give people kind of a real story of where I came from and who I am at heart, which is, believe it or not, a kind of shy, introverted person. That,
you know, and I totally get that because creative people are that way. And we get this urge and this push that says, look, you've got to let something move through you right now. And you've been selected. Now do it. But how do you fight those days when it's like, I'm not in the mood, but you still have to do it?
It's hard. I mean, you know, it's a challenge. And especially when I started going out, as I do now, I tour with my live show. And so after years of being completely isolated and putting on these shows in my living room in front of a green screen, I actually started interacting with fans. And I realized, oh, they're kind of expecting this persona, but that's not how I feel right now, you know, like at a meet and greet or something. So it puts some pressure on you. You get a little identity crisis-y, but you know, hopefully it levels out eventually. I think I'm kind of, you know, relaxing into myself a bit.
Do you go into that moment where you kind of just talk to yourself? Because I know that when I have to go out and do personal appearances and stuff like that, I go, put on the face. Come on, you are it. Make it happen. Let's make it work.
You do. Well, you do also, you know, it's a fine line because you want to be true to yourself, because I think people want you to be true to yourself. No one wants a phony 24/7, but you also have a responsibility to give people their money's worth, so to speak, and give people what they want. I'm doing a podcast now that Sean Hayes is producing, and I just interviewed him for it. And he said to me, you know, we were talking about this very thing, because as you can imagine, his character on Will and Grace, you know, he's not that all the time, I don't believe. So I asked him, how do you handle this? And he said, you know, you do have a responsibility. Just remember, you do have a responsibility to the audience to be Randy Rainbow, to be Jack McFarland every so often. So I try to listen to that.
Don't you love the way, though, that you created this on YouTube and have had, basically it's been an explosion of popularity, but all of these comedy clubs around the nation now are inviting people like yourself to bring you as well as your followers into their places and to have that live experience.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just talking to I have a lot of stand-up friends who are, you know, like a class ahead of me. The great Judy Gold, I was also just talking to for my podcast. And, you know, comedians like Judy came up in the conventional way. You know, they really kind of, you know, they were staying at all the Motel 6s and playing in all the crappy nightclubs and you know, to 6 people. And I feel a little guilty every once in a while because thanks to YouTube, I do get to kind of jump the line a bit in that regard. I paid my dues. I do believe that. And I worked in gay nightclubs for years and, you know, to 6 people, but I didn't have to come up through the, you know, trenches like that. So I'm kind of lucky in that regard.
With your creativity, what I feel on this side of the screen is the fact that I feel like that you're one of us in the way that you're always thinking about us as readers as well as listeners. You're sitting here with us while you're performing.
Well, well, explain that. I don't understand what you mean.
Breaking down the fourth wall, basically, that when you sit down to do a project, it's like a radio listener. When I'm doing a show, I myself is in that car with that listener. I am where they are, and to me that's part of the one-on-oneness, I guess, that radio shoves into our soul when we first get into the game.
And you're saying that translates through my videos?
Absolutely, it does. It's almost like your mind is saying, I know how you're going to react. I know what I need to say to get a reaction, and it's almost like you can see us before it happens.
What a great compliment that is, and I guess that does play into it. That's part of the recipe, I guess, is you want to be conversational, you want to sort of be on people's shoulder and kind of, and I do hear that. I hear from people, especially when I'm talking about topics that everyone is going through collectively. They say you make me feel not so alone, or like, oh my God, I share beliefs with the same kind of beliefs with you, and you make me feel like I'm not going crazy. So I guess in my writing I do try to have some of that come through, and I do write as though I'm talking to a friend.
That's it.
That's translated,
Well, that's the difference between talking to someone and talking at someone. You can be in a conversation, but are you sharing a conversation, or are you just participating?
Right, and it's tricky, especially when you're doing topics like I'm handling, which are very polarizing issues sometimes. Yeah. But I don't talk about them like a pundit. I do try to kind of talk about them, even though I'm, the conceit is that I'm a journalist talking in a professional manner. I'm just trying to have a phone conversation with my girlfriend, so to speak, my friend, my gal, and by girl, I mean, of all genders.
So now, with the coffee and stuff like that, I mean, I can't go anywhere in the morning on these shows without my cup of coffee. To me, it's the fuel, but at the same time, I think it's a hidden pleasure because I love the smell and taste of coffee. What about you?
I do too. This is actually tea, which is my new thing. I'm like a 60-year-old British woman. That's what I'm growing into. I love it. But I love my tea in the morning, and I used to not have anything. I used to say no caffeine, no to caffeine, and now I think as people get older, I think they catch on to, that'll wake me up, and it tastes and smells delicious, and it's something to look forward to. So yeah, I got my little Keurig, and I need it. I must have it.
As a writer to another writer, how is it that you've been able to write for other people and then relinquish it? Because I mean, it's like, I guess I'm just a selfish writer. It's like mine. But you actually write for other people.
Well, not real. Well, who do I write for? Who do you mean? Not really.
I mean, it's like, I mean, when you have, for instance, like when you share the screen and people, you're acting with people and stuff like that, you had to have written it first. So you're giving that line to somebody else. I would want the best line. It's like they always say in radio, you need three things. You need a dick, a dork, and a deer in order to make a joke work. And it's like, well, somebody's got to write those lines. Well,
fortunately for me, as I talk about in the book, I am usually a one-man band. So often my counterpart in the video is just news clips that I'm pulling. So I get to give myself the best lines. But there have been occasions where I've had the honor and privilege to write for people who have guested on my videos. I write a whole chapter about Patti LuPone, who actually came to my apartment and did a video with me. So in that case, she, of course, got the best lines. So that was easy. But yeah, I would not be. It's hard for me when I am presented with an opportunity to work with others because my process has been so isolated.
Yep.
It is tricky when other people come in to collaborate. You got to learn how to do that.
Well, see, and that's one of the things that I try to promote because when I'm invited to talk at universities about broadcasting as well as podcasting, and one of the things that I always share with them is that make it a one-person show. You don't team up with anybody because when you make it about what you're doing, then other people can come on as guests because if they don't show up one day, now we have a fight.
Exactly right. Well, those are words to live by.
And
I mean, the book is called Playing with Myself, so I like being alone.
Do you journal?
Do
you journal? I mean, because writing is that's how I breathe, is through words. And so I keep two different journals. But in reading the book Playing with Myself, it's almost like you're giving us a chapter of your journals.
That's so nice. And I think that writing this book was the kind of closest I ever came to really technically journaling. That's how I saw it. I saw it as I was writing in a diary, and I would turn pages into my editor, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're being really kind of raw and open." And then he kept saying that, and I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, isn't that what you're supposed to do? I thought that was the assignment." I'm like, "Wait, let me rewrite that." No. He was like, "No, it's good, it's good, it's good." So I think this hopefully will sound like pages from my diary when people read it.
Oh my God, that relationship with the editor, because I know in my second book, she kept saying, "This is too sad. This is too sad. You've got to put some happy stuff in here." And I go, "No, this is really who I am."
Right. I know. Well, the thing I was talking about before is with the balance and your persona and meeting people, you have to kind of strike the same balance when you're writing. So I did, I talked about some sad things, and I talked about loss and failure and stuff like that. But then you also, I have the luxury of also having this persona that people know, so I could then comment on those sad things in character and bring a little levity to the situation. So that was a good mechanism.
So one of the things that I've always learned about writing, and I've experienced myself, is that when you put something like this book together, Playing with Myself, it actually is cleaning out the closet. That opens up that space and more creative room inside your mind, body, and soul. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was more therapeutic, this process, than I really was ready for. I mean, I was crying. Yep. I was remembering things. I had my mother on the phone. We were both crying and thinking about past things that we hadn't talked about in years. So yeah, it is definitely a cleansing process. Now I'm gonna, I can fill the tank up with more crap to write about this.
And you do. And it's almost, well, let me ask you this question. Has it opened the door for you to discover new things? Because while I was writing the book, all of a sudden I found myself putting a paint on a canvas. Oh, I'm going to be a painter now. It's like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah. You mean like you literally were painting?
Oh my God. The thing in my first book, One Man's 1,021 Thoughts, about 3/4 of the way through it, all of a sudden I spilled some ink on my journal, and it took on the shape of a wine glass. I said, that's who I'm going to be. I'm going to be a painter. So I started going out and buying paint, canvases, and now I understand why they call it, artists poor people, because everything is so damn expensive.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No, I haven't had that experience yet. I'm also very lazy at my core, so I'm not really looking at like I have so much with all that I have with the podcasting and the touring for this book. I'm kind of just want to go back to bed. I can't wait for summer to just sit with a mojito. But maybe once things calm down, maybe I'll feel that. Maybe I'll take up painting.
Let's talk about that podcast in the way, because you said you talked with Sean Hayes and stuff like that. What is the journey for you? Is it to get a story, or is it for them to share their story before somebody writes it for them?
From the people I'm interviewing, you mean?
Absolutely, because you've got the key to their heart. You have the ability as a podcaster to get inside.
Yeah, well, I've just really started with this podcasting, and my podcast will be a mix of things. So it'll be a little of the real kind of more subdued Randy in the conversations I have with these celebrities and friends of mine, and also some sketch comedy where I'll be more on, and there'll be some musical elements and things like that. But I am loving having conversations. I feel like I'm at a good place to do this, because these people I have on, and by the way, we have Titus Burgess, Josh Gad, Carol freaking Burnett. Carol Burnett.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have been around long enough now to kind of develop relationships with these people. Yep. So I'm not kind of just fumbling around and fawning like a fan, like I might have done even just 5 years ago. I actually have a little bit of an in with them. And so we do get to have kind of a real personal relationship, and I'm loving it, but I'm still navigating and learning.
Don't you think that you could have fit in on the Carol Burnett show? I mean, look at the stuff that you have done. I mean, and the sketches that she would do. It's like, oh my God, what a perfect fit.
Yeah, and we've become friends. I can't believe it. I'm actually going to, she's receiving the Sondheim Award in D.C. in May, and she invited me and my mother. Can you imagine? My mother has lost her mind. But yeah, no, please, that's what I live for, is to be, I always tell her, people interview me and they say, who do you want to be when you grow up? Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert or Trevor Noah? And I'm like, no, I want to be Carol Burnett.
Yes. I totally get that, because it's almost like she gave herself permission to be as creative as possible, and we never saw who was censoring her, if even if they were doing that, but she still did things that we were there every week watching that show.
Oh, brilliant. So brilliant. Yeah, I could watch, I go back and watch reruns of that all the time. So inspiring.
See, and that's what I love about like Antenna TV and all the old shows you can get on the HD channels and stuff like that, because it's like, wow, I watched these as a kid, but as an adult, it's like I get it now.
Yeah, it's funny though, like to watch them now as an adult. I laughed just as hard as a kid, and it's funny how comedy just transcends, because even if you didn't get the references, and certainly some of those movie references, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But if it's funny, it's funny, One
of the things that you're not afraid to do is kind of enter into that world of politics. Is that a tough place to be these days, where everybody is just saying whatever?
It is a tough place to be. I say in the beginning of the book, one of the biggest misconceptions about me is that I am like hired by the DNC or Nancy Pelosi or something, and I'm here to push some kind of agenda. But and my videos are not actually politically motivated by any means. I have opinions about stuff. I'm angry about stuff, and I'm the sole writer of these things, so I'm sure that comes through. And they are politically themed often. There's no getting around that. But that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is to get up and do the Carol Burnett show and put on a performance and have a great time and bring a little levity to these topics. So all that to say that I think that's why people have responded to what I am doing positively for the most part for years now, is because I'm not focused on the politics, though that might not seem weird to some people to say. It's I'm just having a good time. So that's been my secret. Because otherwise, if I then call my mother or my friends and I just kvetch about these topics. And if just to hear me kvetch about politics is not funny by any stretch, you don't want to hear that. It's depressing.
Do you think you'll grow up to be a curmudgeon, or do you feel like, no, I'm just going to be me and I'm just going to say whatever I want to?
Grow up to be? I think I'm full hardcore curmudgeon already. Yeah. But also, as the great Joan Rivers said, anger fuels the comedy. So even if I'm smiling on screen and singing a show tune, there's anger at the root of that. And I think that kind of helps fuel it. Oh,
so true. I just talked about that on iHeartRadio yesterday. I said that if you feel that I'm being super positive, you better look the other direction, because there's someone else, bringing this to you.
Exactly. Well, my grandmother, who was a great muse to me and an inspiration, kind of taught me that at a young age. It's like she was a pessimist. She hated everyone and she hated everything, including her own friends. She hated everyone, but she had this magic kind of superpower to convert all of her negative energy immediately into something funny. And she would do a performance piece about it. And I would say, anger should always be funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My God, Randy, I hope to God your tour is going to bring you to Charlotte, because I would love to see you perform live. And I'd love to be in that green room with you right before you go on that stage, because to me, that is a precious moment time that is just that a lot of people don't get to see.
You're invited anytime. I've been to Charlotte, and I will certainly be returning, and you better be there.
I will. We'll go out and we'll have some French fries and things. Well, I don't know. Maybe you're vegan.
No, but I'll have a martini.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do a martini with you. Absolutely.
All right. It's a date.
Dude, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you so much, Ira. It was great talking to you.